Dear friends, Operator Starsky here, and this is In Time. Guys, please subscribe to this channel because you can find all kinds of recent updates from Ukraine, analysis, and all kinds of interesting guests, not including myself, of course, but I will be present here as well. Hopefully, we'll see you soon.
He announced he would establish the Ministry of National Defense in Yonsong district instead of the Blue House.
Well, give us a minute on that. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Overtime. We have, and let me just, I wanted to check and make sure the stream is going to the right place. In the last roughly hour and a half, we've learned of what appears to be an attempted coup d'etat by the president of South Korea. This was honestly not on anybody's radar. We were not expecting this. We was just, it was dropped on our Discord by reliable sources, so we just started going into it. The way this appears to have started is the president of South Korea declared an emergency martial law saying that he had to protect against North Korea's communist forces. Now, what would inspire him to do this, we don't know. There was no evidence of North Korean infiltration, so we're saying they're going, okay, what's he got? What's he working on? The parliament then decided to hold a vote in opposition of his declaration of martial law. In response to that, he ordered the military, we believe at least an airborne, what was it?
Special Forces Unit.
I'm sorry, and Special Forces Unit to invade Parliament. Protesters resisted trying to protect the Parliament building. They did breach the Parliament building. During that time, however, Parliament successfully held a vote. It was a unanimous vote, I think 140-something to 0, blocking his declaration of martial law. At this point, it appears that the military recognized that with that vote, he did not have the authority to order them to continue the invasion of the Parliament building, and they evacuated the building. There's footage on our Discord of them essentially breaking a window and jumping out of the National Assembly building. At this point, we have Commander who is kind enough to join us and I think can shed some light on the subject. But at this point, really, the facts that we have, and again, you can follow us on the Discord and follow this as this continues, is that a few hours ago, the North Korean president declared martial law. The parliament decided to attempt to override his declaration. In response, he sent the military to secure the Parliament building. Civilian forces resisted and gave the Parliament apparently enough time to vote. They held the vote. They stripped him of the martial law power. They nullified his decree, and the military forces then retreated from the building. That's what we know so far. Commander, thank you for joining us. Can you shed any light on this?
Sure. I think one of the key things we need to do to understand what's going on is look into the background of Korean President Yoon Suk. He's a fairly conservative fellow. He's also fairly young in terms of he's the first president of South Korea who was born after the Korean War. One of the things that has happened in the past when he was the prosecutor general for the government, he was basically impeached, to put it in American terms, for corruption, ethics violations, and interfering in investigations into family members and political associates. He was subsequently, several months later, reinstated by the Supreme Court of South Korea because the procedures that had been used to relieve him of his position were not all in accordance with rules. But it shows that he has a pattern of doing this kind of thing. And one of the things that people are saying may be going on right now is his wife was under investigation for corruption and influence peddling charges. So he may have decided to protect her and his political future when that was announced that they were going to be investigating her. So he staged effectively a coup to stop it, and the government voted unanimously to shut him down. He's got a pattern of other bizarre behavior, like he moved the presidential, I don't know what we call it, the operations room or the headquarters portion of the presidency out of the White House to a specially constructed building in a new part of Seoul, because he felt that the Blue House, which is the White House in our terms, it's their residence for the president. He felt that the Blue House was too exposed because it had been open to public tours. So he wanted to make sure he had a safe, secure bunker where the people couldn't get at him. His approval ratings are pretty terrible. The last one I saw was able to get access to, it was like 23% or something. So that gives you an idea of what's going on, I think, or at least the motive for why he may have declared martial law. It's a preemption to prevent political embarrassment and investigation into his wife.
Thank you. Titan has corrected us. This was not a. This is not a coup. It is a political dispute exercise. Special
Military operation.
Special political dispute operation.
Okay.
So, having said that, it appears, and I want to check the source on this, that South Korea's military, despite evacuating the parliament, has said that we have a shot here, again, this is on our Discord, of South Korean television. They're saying, the Washington Post is reporting that the martial law, in fact, will remain in effect, according to the military, until the president officially lifts it. So the parliament has voted unanimously to block it. I don't know if they have that authority. They attempted to exercise it anyway. It did get the military to evacuate the building. I think when you have your own military invading your parliamentary building, you've already kind of crossed a line. I don't know how or why they went back. I'm glad they did, but obviously this is an extraordinarily serious matter. I think this brings insight into, because honestly, I didn't see this coming. I have no idea why, and so it sounds like what you're suggesting is he already appears to have gotten into significant trouble when he was at their Justice Department for trying to what appeared to be trying to cover up the illegal activities of members of his family, and now his wife is under investigation, and it appears that he may be doing this in an effort to.
Yeah, his wife works for a company that hosts art exhibitions, and the investigation is into allegations that she has taken kickbacks for hosting those art exhibitions.
All right, so the reason he's giving is that this is because
the opposition is controlled and influenced by North Korea.
Yeah, has there ever been an accusation of that was credible that anybody would be following up on now? Okay, no, so
it's lunacy.
So as I said, the armed forces had in fact invaded the National Assembly building when the Parliament voted to override his martial law declaration, which I'm not sure they're legally able to do. The military evacuated the building. This is the footage of that evacuation.
국민 여러분, 박한대 원내대표 역시 국회 안에 도착한 상태고요. 더불어민주당 의원들도 현재 국회 본회의장에 모여 있고 도착하고
Let's open the window.
Yeah, I'm curious why they didn't use the front door. The only answer I can think of is that there were apparently a lot of protesters that were trying to keep the military out, and then once they were in, simply waltzing out and saying, "Oh, sorry, my bad," was not necessarily an option.
And the protesters, who apparently are reasonably peaceful, had the military special forces guys come out behind them when they're confronting the military police in front of them. That might have led to a very violent confrontation. So.
So, for those of you just joining us, we learned a short while ago that there was what appears to be, and I think, Commander, you're willing to call essentially an attempted coup d'etat in South Korea. The president, without any warning, simply declared martial law. He said he was doing this because of North Korean infiltrators. Protests against that declaration started. Parliament decided to hold a vote to declare his martial law, or to void the martial law declaration. In order to stop them, he ordered the military to basically seize Parliament, which they attempted to do. They did successfully breach the building. However, by the time they got past the protesters, it appears the vote was held and was unanimous in overturning his declaration. The problem is, I know nothing, obviously, about the North Korean political system. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief here, and my understanding is with the recent, as in modern history, changes to the law, the president can basically do whatever he wants with the military for 30 days, and then he has to justify it to Congress. But for those 30 days, short of posse comitatus, which this would obviously fall under, he can do whatever he wants with the military, and he can declare martial law if he wants to. And I don't think Congress can do anything other than a symbolic vote against it. I'm seeing several reports that say that, Congress has, their Parliament has spoken, so it's over. But according to the Washington,
Somebody in the chat stream said they heard that the vote was unanimous. Yes, it was. It was like 143. The trouble is, that's not the entire Parliament. So I think what happened is that largely members of the opposition were able to form a quorum that allowed them to execute the vote, but 𝐒𝐤𝐜𝐴's party was not necessarily present.
Well, yeah, that's an awfully low number. So is it possible, so you're suggesting you think they may not have had quorum?
No, they did have quorum.
Oh, they did, okay.
Yeah, the trouble is, it's like if you had something in the U.S. Congress that you voted on, your party didn't have the majority, but you had convinced enough independents or maybe favorable or people who were more favorable to you on the other side to come and vote on your side. But none of the other people from that party showed up, just enough for you to pass the measure.
Yep.
You still have quorum, but you don't have, a full representation of the political spectrum.
So there may be people on the far right who would have absolutely supported him. They just either didn't show up or were hindered by blunt objects to the kneecaps. North Korean, wow, I'm so used to saying they're usually the troublemakers. South Korean
True
Times.
Koreans, just to make sure you understand that.
South Korea, the Korean Times is reporting the following. They say that police officers have now blocked access to the National Assembly compound. Apparently the declaration of martial law was done at 11 p.m. Thursday, which means, Tuesday, which means that, the only reason to do it at that time of night is you don't want anyone to know or to stop you. It seems a miracle they were able to get enough members of parliament to actually hold a vote against it. The sweeping restrictions announced by the Chief of Staff of the Army include a ban on strikes, acts of sabotage, and rallies. The president said that he was that this was aimed at, quote, eradicating pro-North Korean forces and protecting the constitutional order of freedom. Always the rallying cry of the oppressor. And now all of South Korean news media has been placed under martial law and apparently have been instructed not to report on this. We are getting this from the Korean Times, so at least so far, it appears as if one organization at a minimum is violating that order. And as you had said earlier, this marks the first declaration of martial law in South Korea since May 18th, 1980. All medical professionals, including doctors on strike or anyone absent from their duties, must return to work. Thousands of resident doctors have been striking since February to protest the government's medical reform plans. Violators will face arrest and seizure without warrant, and punishments will also be enforced in accordance with this measure.
Yep. So to put this in a little bit of context for people, the protests showing up at 11 o'clock and starting this and being relatively effective at keeping the military police from getting into the building. That's not a terrible surprise. South Korea has a long history of very active protesters. In fact, when summer break hit for the universities, it was inevitably called the protesting season because they'd all get out and start protesting stuff. seriously, I mean, it was like, American university students, when they're on break, they go to, Miami and South Beach. In Korea, you go to Seoul and you protest.
It is remarkable that they were as successful as you pointed out in blocking the military from accessing the building. And we do know they got in. What we have now is this is a picture of the South Korean parliament as they were voting on the measure. As you can see, there are in fact quite a number of empty seats, as you had pointed out. It appears they had enough for quorum, but not a lot of people had made it into the building. They did vote, and they voted unanimously. That's the green circle there. They voted unanimously to block the declaration of martial law. The president has ignored this block. Whether or not he's legally entitled to do so, I don't know, but he is ignoring it. The military has said that they are ignoring it, and the military has confirmed that martial law is now in effect in South Korea. They are blocking media access. At least they've said they're blocking media access. They've said that the media falls under the martial law declaration. This is the front of that building that you just saw. This is as they were holding the vote. This is the workers of the building blocking the revolving doors so that the military could not get in. Let's see, that's I think we have a sort of a closer up of that shot. But this was the military trying, and they did eventually break through. By the time they did, the vote had been held, and then we have the footage we already showed you. I'll show that once again shortly after the vote was held. The military appears to have left. The only thing that I'm curious about is
my
that
understanding, Nick, is that the protesters kept the military police out of the building. The building was stormed by special forces landing atop the building with helicopters. That's how they got in. And then they removed all the people that were blocking entrance to the building so that the MPs could come in.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think when you're deploying special forces to the roof of the Parliament building, all right.
Yeah, and Suk is trying to portray this as the opposition party are controlled by the evil North Koreans and they're trying to overthrow the government. It seems odd that, that only would come to light at 11 o'clock in the evening. To me, it's fairly evident that this is somebody who's worried about his political future and trying to protect it by using force. Typical authoritarian.
History of that happening in any countries we know of, say Israel, US, anything like that? Asking for a friend?
I'll have to do some research on that one. I can't say for sure.
Yeah. All right. Of the beginning of Saddam. Yeah. So, Commander, you've seen more than a few of these. And we saw a couple of years ago significant protests against Netanyahu. If I recall, it was about 1 million people in the streets. I thought there was a decent shot to take him down. They burned his house down, but Netanyahu obviously stayed in power. Any prognostications now that you've been awake for about 20 minutes? And
thanks, Nick. I love people coming up with these things.
Yeah.
To get a peaceful protest to overthrow the government is really a difficult thing. Because effectively you have to force the government to resign. And if they're dead set on retaining power, that's not going to happen, regardless of how many people are in the streets waving signs. You have to look at like the Maidan as a perfect example, where it eventually starts turning violent, usually because the security forces overreact against the protest because they're ordered to do so by the leadership, because the leadership doesn't want to be embarrassed by all the protesting. And that could develop here. So it's a good question of, do we get that transition to a violent situation? Right now, we're not seeing it, but you never know if this continues and the oppression is continuing to ratchet up. Yeah, it might do that. South Koreans are very cognizant of and proud of the fact that they're, one of those rare countries that actually has a functioning democratic system in Asia.
With the presidential approval rating of 24, I assume it's not going to be too hard to find people who are going to be willing to protest this. The military, it seems to me in a coup, usually whoever gets to the military first and gets them on board is the side that's going to be most victorious. That's why when, again, in Israel, it was over 1 million protesters, and the protesters demanded that the military join on their side and overthrow Netanyahu, and the military said no, and then Netanyahu demanded that they clear the civilians, and they said no, and they just stayed out of it, and which was a remarkable thing. In this case, the military does seem to be going with him. Is there any reason to suspect that?
I would be cautious about making that statement because the fact the military backed off after the vote was made suggests that they're concerned about the legality of this and they may not want to get involved. They'll stand to the side. They'll try to maintain law and order, but not necessarily shut down the protests.
The U.S. is very concerned with South Korea because obviously it borders with North Korea. Any thoughts as to diplomatic pressure that the U.S. might consider? We've a lame duck president who is working on anything he can maybe do for a legacy. He's dramatically upped support for Ukraine as quickly as he can. He's trying to get everything done that he can before Trump comes in. Any thoughts? And is the president of North Korea maybe going to stick around, try to stick around until Trump gets into power, hoping that he gets a sympathetic ear in a fellow right-wing authoritarian?
The U.S. has definite concerns because we have a large number of troops stationed in South Korea. I think it's something approaching like 70,000, could be more. I can't remember the numbers exactly. So at the very least, that's a potential hostage situation. So you got to be careful. We also have business interests there, although South Korea has become kind of an industrial giant in Asia. So they have a very active economy. They have a lot of trade with us, and
sorry, I missed part of that. Thank you, Titan. I think we'll drop that in the Discord. It's not, unfortunately, it's unavailable. I don't know why. The Independent, it does have a live stream of protesters who have now stormed the National Assembly and are protesting the martial law declaration. The police have been clashing with protesters, and the president has said that he will, quote, eradicate the shameless pro-North Korean anti-state forces, although apparently he has refused to define and identify who they are. I want to just check one more thing here, and then I think... Oh, yeah, resisting calls for independent probes into the scandals involving his wife, and his conservative People's Power Party has been in an impasse with the Democratic Party over next year's bill, next year's budget bill, but the Democratic Party leader at this point says that he is concerned that parliamentarians are going to be arrested at this point, that the opposing party is going to be arrested. I think that's a valid concern. I think that, would be the next move. Now, if he does that, as a guess, I wouldn't see any way to restore democracy without it getting violent at that point. He's literally locked up everybody who's opposing him. Yeah. So what are you looking? I know you're going to need to go soon, so I appreciate your time. What indicators will you be looking for over the next, say, 12 to 24 hours as to whether or not this can be resolved peaceably? Will you be looking for statements from the U.S.? Will you be looking to hear what he says, what the opposition or military says? What are you looking for?
Well, first off, I think this is primarily an internal South Korean issue. I don't think the U.S. is going to want to get involved. They may make a few, nebulous statements about supporting the democratic process or something, but we won't get directly involved. I think the thing to look out for is if the military troops return to their barracks and the crowd control law and order function is turned back over to the police, and understand that the South Korean police are more of a gendarmerie than they are a police force in some ways. So they're very heavily armed. They have lots of big equipment. They're well equipped and experienced in dealing with crowd control measures. So if the military returns to barracks, that means that this is going to become a civil issue, and the chances of this escalating into a full-on confrontation between the government and the opposition, that will have been lowered. So that's the one thing I would look out for.
All right. This is obviously an ongoing story, but I do know that Commander needs to go, and so what I think we're going to do, we are following this on our Discord, so if you have not yet joined our Discord, please do check it out, and you can follow in the breaking news channel what's going on. We also do have a live feed from in front of the parliamentary building, and we have some photos of the clashes. For those of you just joining us at 11 p.m. local time, the president of South Korea declared martial law. He said he was doing this to protect against North Korean sympathizers or infiltrators, or we're not entirely sure, but apparently very bad North Korean people that had infiltrated the population, the government of South Korea. We don't really know. We do know that apparently it had to be dealt with at 11 p.m. at night. He made this declaration. The parliament decided that this was just a power grab. Indeed, his wife has been under investigation for a number of illegal activities, And at this point, I think it's a very tenable argument to say that he's really just trying to shelter himself and his family from the legal consequences of past activities. In fact, when he was at the Justice Department in there, he did the same, and but for a technicality, probably would have been relieved of his position, if I understand what you had told me earlier, Commander. The Parliament tried to hold a vote. A number of military officers tried, actually I think it was police, you had said, police tried to break into the building. They were repelled. Meanwhile, special forces on a helicopter came in, landed on top of the parliamentary building and attempted to seize it. Before they succeeded, there was a vote, a unanimous vote, I believe 143-0, to override the martial law declaration by the president. The military has said that they are ignoring that override and that martial law is now in effect in South Korea. They have said that the martial law applies to all news media and appear to be shutting them down. That is what we have heard from one South Korean newspaper. Like I said, there is a live feed of the protests, but as of this moment, that's all we know. It appears credible that the president, whose approval rating was at a whopping 28%, is attempting to seize power to protect himself and his family members from legal consequences of pretty serious allegations, especially against his wife. So that's what's going on. That's all we know. If there's anything extraordinarily serious that changes, we will certainly go live again and let you guys all know. In the meantime, thank you all for your support and for joining us. And hopefully things will resolve here. It is disconcerting. Is it just me, or is there... And I know these things do sometimes come in waves. There was the Arab Spring, and now we have, Italy seems to have gotten better, but Italy, Germany, a number of other countries have definitely been leaning fascist and moving far right. The U.S. has been having its own problems with that. Is that a trend that we're seeing now and need to be concerned with, or? Yeah,
and the part that makes me concerned is it's very clear that Russian disinformation, bots and trolls and such are being used to exacerbate, if not kick off, these problems in a lot of the countries where it's happening. That right now is one of their single most effective weapons in war that they're engaged in with the West. So I suspect that there may be a bit of effort on their part or through their North Korean proxies or perhaps China to try to stir the pot here. I don't know that they necessarily kicked it off. I think this has started as simply an internal political issue. And the president overreacted, and then Parliament or the National Assembly did what it needed to do to try to squash that. But I think that we're going to see an increase in agitation going on from opposition external to the country.
All right. Well, thanks again, once again, for joining us on such short notice. I hope you have a pleasant day, and I hope we don't have need to call on you again anytime soon. And for those of you joining us here, again, please like, subscribe. It really does help. Share, let people know what we do. I think we do a good job of it. I'm very proud of everyone who has contributed today for us getting this out. And if you agree, let your friends know. That's a great way to help out the channel. In the meantime, we will be keeping an eye on this and all our other stories. We are going to be having a in time later tonight. Xandring and I are working that out right now. We have a few topics that we're going to be discussing. Obviously, this may may change our topics. But we'll just a regular in time cover what's been going on in the news. So we'll give you guys an update then. Until then, have a good day, and we will see you on In Time tonight. I think right now it's 6:30 p.m. Eastern, but don't hold me to that. Have a good night.